Wall Street closes a disappointing week with the major indexes suffering losses. Meanwhile, signs of inflationary pressure, boosted by today's producer price data, are dampening risk appetite. Investors are looking to minimize risks amid concerns about the banking sector. As a result, Treasury yields rose while fast-growing stocks posted declines. InstaForex analysts are ready to tell you about the main news. On a Thursday, the major Wall Street indexes barely changed despite rather choppy trading. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 52 points or 0.15%. The Nasdaq index was up 0.12%, and the S&P 500 index had a minimal gain of 1 point or 0.03% and closed at 4,468 points. On a Friday, the indexes turned bearish once again. Index futures were down 0.15 and 0.5%, signaling a rather gloomy opening. As for the S&P 500 index, the trading instrument may spend the day in the range of 4,420 and 4,480 points. Wall Street's major indexes ended Thursday's trading session flat, losing much of their early gains on a weaker-than-expected inflation data. Reports showed that both inflation and the core consumer prices rose by 0.2% in July, with the core inflation up 3.2% on a yearly basis and inflation up 4.7%. While both early readings were higher, they were below market forecasts. In the first hour of trading, the three benchmark indexes rose over 1% as investors anticipated that the Fed would stop policy tightening. However, the market seemed to focus on the fact that the indexes remained quite resilient despite the declines. Meanwhile, San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly said that while the latest inflation data was moving in the right direction, more progress was needed before the data was at a comfortable level for the Fed. On a Thursday, the S&P and Nasdaq showed moderate gains for the second day in August. Apple and Nvidia fell by 0.1 and 0.4% respectively, while Microsoft closed with modest gains. The rally in the 10-year US Treasuries also limited further gains for these mega-cap stocks. The S&P major sectors were split between declines and gains, with energy posting its sixth consecutive gain. Walt Disney rose by 4.9% after the company beat Wall Street forecast for quarterly earnings per share. US stock index futures were already trading in the red on a Friday. After the disappointing CPI data, investors were waiting for the producer prices data, which could provide more clarity on the Fed's plans for rate hikes. US producer prices increased by 0.3% month-on-month in July, and the largest increase since January and above market forecast of 0.2%. Prices for services soared by 0.5%, the largest increase since August 2022. On a year-over-year basis, the PPI surged by 0.8%, up from 0.2% in June and above the forecast of 0.7%. Notably, when manufacturers ramp prices up, the higher costs are usually passed on to households. So this data is not encouraging for the market. The bets for the no rate hike in September slipped to 88.5% from 90% before the data, although traders broadly expect the Fed to not tighten credit conditions for the remainder of the year. The yield of the two-year Treasury bond, which moves in line with the near-term interest rate expectations, rose to 4.8% after the data pressuring rate-sensitive megacaps. Tesla, Nvidia, and Apple lost between 1.5% and 0.2% before the bell. Meanwhile, everything may change as investors await the preliminary US consumer sentiment data for August, which will be released later today. Downbeat data for the stock market supported the US currency, with the dollar index extending intraday gains. USDX advanced by 0.23% to settle at 102.70. As for the anticipated range for the session, it's likely to trade between the levels of 102.30 and 102.90. The dollar headed for a fourth weekly gain. On Thursday, despite a sell-off in an early trade, the index managed to edge up and close on a positive note after data showed US inflation did not rise as strongly as expected in July. New data fueled optimism among dollar traders, driving it up across the board. Again, the only exception was the British pound, which rose for the first time in 4 days following the news that British economic output grew more than expected in June, despite interest rate increases by the Bank of England. Even though expectations of a possible pause in the rate hikes in the Fed's September meeting remain steady, the US economy is still resilient. Hopes for a soft landing and the ability to avoid a recession boost demand for the greenback. At least for the time being, the US dollar index has every chance of extending gains. As for the USD CAD pair, it continued a gradual decline to weekly lows. On Friday, the asset rose by 0.11% to 1.3460. In the near term, the pair is expected to trade between the levels of 1.3420 and 1.3500. On Thursday, the loonie came under pressure from a rebound in oil prices, and today the market paused for breath but failed to improve the dynamics. A rise in the dollar was offset by cautious optimism over oil prices. Oil prices edged up on Friday amid optimistic demand forecast from an International Energy Agency, and the IEA warned that global inventories could draw down sharply over the rest of 2023, potentially driving prices still higher. At the same time, the agency noted that demand growth could slow in 2024. Brent crude added 0.3% to $86.68 per barrel, while US WTI crude futures rose by 0.18%. Despite Friday's sluggish trading activity, both benchmarks have been on a sustained rally since June. Prior to a rebound, WTI traded at its highest level this year on Thursday, while Brent hit its highest since late January. Speaking of the cryptocurrency market, after several unsuccessful attempts to gain upside momentum, digital assets posed in a negative zone. Bitcoin tried not to move far away from $29,500. By the time of preparing material for this video, the asset gained 0.05% to trade at $29,430. Altcoins traded mixed and sluggishly. Ethereum, Solana, Ripple, Cardano, and Litecoin witnessed fluctuations from a modest rise of 0.08% to a decline of 0.5%. As for fundamental factors, there are no important news releases that could stir up the market. Stress in the US banking sector encouraging crypto investors has not turned into crisis to one. The confrontation between exchanges and the SEC continues. Thus, there are few driving forces for growth. California's Fair Political Practices Commission introduced new disclosure requirements for those wishing to donate digital assets to candidates and parties. According to the release, candidates and parties are allowed to receive digital assets. However, cryptocurrency contributions are subject to applicable limits. It's pretty good for the market, but not enough to inspire optimism among investors. In the meantime, Bitcoin is trying to consolidate above $29,500. If the asset overcomes this resistance level, the way to $30,000 will open. Otherwise, the asset may fall to $29,200 and then $28,800. At the same time, the most likely scenario suggests a sideways movement in the range of $29,200 to $29,600. It's what InstaForex analysts expect from today's US trading session. Our team keeps a track of key events so that you are always aware of market trends and risks. We are looking forward to your comments on this video. Your feedback is important to us and gives us valuable insight which allow us to serve you better. That's it. We wish you profitable trading and have a nice weekend, and see you online on a Monday.